morning, everyone, again. Happy to be here. How do we start? It has been a turbulent couple of weeks in the immigration sector. I think that for us as prospective immigrants, there is a lot to unpack, a lot to understand. I'll rely heavily on my team to be able to navigate us with timing. Some people here will probably be joining us for the first time in our webinars, or some people here will be prospective customers or current customers. And I think that before going into our slides and the program for the day, everybody wants to hear about what is going on in Canada. We have put out some information all over our pages, all over our platforms, talking about what is going on. And I think before I go into the slide, the main thing that I will need to re-emphasize for you is that in life, it is much more important to respond than to react. When you respond, it gives you an opportunity to do the right thing. When you react, you most likely would have done the wrong thing. And as an organization, I make it a point of order to be able to respond rather than to react. Part of proper response to any matter is to take into cognizance certain things, the history of a matter, what is available on data about that matter. And by the time you apply those things to the persons that you are looking to collaborate with, in our case, we are collaborating with various countries and various embassies and foreign ministries, etc. It gives you an idea, a clear idea on what you need to do. This is the proper way. For someone like me, I'm less interested in the noise and more interested in doing the right thing. All right. So there's been a lot of change over the last couple of months across the Big Four. For those of you who do not know, the Big Four are generally Canada, Australia, the United Kingdom, and the US. And so there have been a lot of changes. Some have now spanned a good number of years, some a good number of months. Perhaps the only one that spans a good number of years is the US, because the politics in the US is very, very, very interesting. So changes that were made under the last administration of President Donald Trump still affects the US to date, and subsequently affects immigrants who are looking to go to the US. But Canada, UK, and Australia have similar interests, have similar policies. And you may ask me why. One of the answers that I'll give you is politics related. The US makes use of a continuing system of presidency and national assemblies over a 4-year period, while the UK, the colonizers and the Commonwealth, of which Canada and Australia are part of, make use of a parliamentary system that produces prime ministers based on the number of seats that a political party holds. And so because of that, you would find that depending on who wins, we try to say center, right, center, left, depending on who wins an election, policies will shift to one side of the aisle. All right. So yes, we can now start taking the slides where we'll continue to talk about some of these things. Australia has a new government, a new prime minister, while the UK has a new prime minister who's just been a couple of months. If you understand their system, he's the third prime minister within the era, or fourth, if I'm not wrong, because I believe fourth. He's the fourth prime minister from the same party. And so you cannot really say it's new, because parties are about ideology. It's not a Nigerian thing where we say we are part of a party, but the ideology is very, very different from what we say. What we do is different from what we say. Right. So Sunak is the fourth since the decision of the British people to exit the European Union. Cameron at the time had to come down because he felt that that was a bad decision. And then, of course, they produced Boris Johnson and our dear sister, who only spent a good number of days, the Truss, Lisa Truss, and now we have Sunak, but we believe Sunak will be out of there very shortly again. The UK has to have elections very soon, within the next year. Canada is safe for now. The prime minister pushed for an election a couple of, about a year plus ago now about. So these are the things that affect these countries. And it is very important that you understand that boring history, right? The boring history is why we are successful in our office. It's not just what's worked. It's not just about, oh, what school works, what policy favors you, is it cheap and all that. For some of you who have friends abroad, you would understand that it's not as easy as sometimes services like ours, or popularly called agents, make it seem, right? So yeah, so we've touched on this slide where I've said that, there's been a lot of changes, and we will discuss how they would affect you. All right. So you can take a look at the slide, right? Okoyemi called me the king of Jaka. I won't be the king if it's not in my head. So the slide will just give you guys an idea of what we are going to be talking about, but largely what I'm looking to do is already in my head. Of course, we know that the different countries have varying processes for admission and for visas. For instance, now we have over 1,000 partners all over these big four countries, but even as partners, they are still sort of some things we call like sub-partners, or you are a sub-partner, portals that you have to apply through. I would always tell people, like, similar to JAMB here in Nigeria, which is the exam you must take to go into any university. There are some things like that in different areas. The UK has theirs, we call it UCAS. The Ontario province in Canada has theirs, they call it OCAS. BC has theirs, they call it their Duplana. So there are different systems. Australia has theirs, So all these things are all important. Understanding when to apply, what your result is, how does your decision to go into a particular school affect your visa decision, how does the cost affect your visa decisions. For the UK, which we usually call the piece of cake, because generally with the UK, it's pretty straightforward. You have your money, you know what you want to do, we'll get you to the UK. It's a thing of pride for us, because in our years of existence, we have never been denied a UK visa. For us, it will be ludicrous, because it's pretty much the most straightforward system. We have some sort of like a perfect synergy with the United Kingdom, the system is pretty straightforward to use, right? So what do we know? That they have implemented changes in 2024. We talked about the 5-point plan that was announced last year. Some of you here may have experienced, quote unquote, those kind of scams on this certificate of sponsorship, social work, things like that. Care workers can no longer bring independence. The minimum salaries have now increased from 26,000 to 38,000 plus. Alterations on the occupation list. So basically, you will not have as many of the jobs that are available in the past for immigrants coming to the UK. The minimum income for a partner also has increased, and of course, a review on the graduate visa. So for overseas graduates. So those are probably the key changes. Generally, as an agent, I would say to my customers that, look, if you want to go to the UK today, you better be a young person who wants to go sort of create a path for him or herself, right? So I appreciate young people from secondary school or A levels going into the UK, young people below the age of 30 going to the UK for their masters, particularly, there's no shade on the married people, but right now you better be single because you can't even go with a dependent except you are, an academic, an ethical, somebody who loves to do research. You'll probably be the smaller percentage of people who can do that. So you want to go to the UK, it's because you have interest for masters, you want to go learn something, you want to go to the UK because you are trying to figure out life, or you're a young person with an opportunity, probably you have the money or your family wants to sponsor you. That's great, go do something. I'm not ashamed to say, people wonder because I have a great affinity for leadership and Nigeria as a whole. I choose not to, immigrate permanently. It's because I'm very realistic about where our academic system is here. We are a bit far away from the Western world, and it wasn't always like this. So I personally encourage people to go abroad. Now, I'm not of the school of thought. You won't really find me in that Japa syndrome conversation. You would find me on the, Japa for change conversation, which is go abroad and learn something that will be useful to you and perhaps ultimately useful to our nation or Africa. So right now, you're a young person, UK is where you want to go. It's the number one place for, in fact, I would say under 27, the UK is the perfect place to go. And I've got partners all over the world, but I've got strong partners in the UK that would help you find your pathway. It's a no-brainer. It's strange, but if you have a friend in Canada that is young and you talk to the person, you would understand what I'm saying. We don't have time for that now. So already this January, you can go with dependents. Only PhD and research-based programs will be allowed for the UK. Now, the other matter with the UK is probably the issue of scams, if you want to touch on that. And, because our system here is broken, the current government is trying their best to make changes, but because the system is broken, what I will say is that we are not used to a working system. So sometimes when people come to my office, people are used to always circumventing the system. The white man does not think that way. And so you need to be able to understand that anything that anybody tells you about going abroad, particularly if it has to do with the Big Four, it will be open source information. That means that it is free information on the government's website or any platform that they are using. And so it's always very strange for me when I hear that Nigerians get scammed. But like I say on my podcast, Japa Chronicles, I say that when people get scammed, it's because, they themselves have a very interesting and unique pathway. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. So, because I don't understand why you pay X amount of naira to somebody who you've never met, and you cannot do any form of verification. largely people pay 4 to 10 million naira for that, and then they go on social media to wail. I'm sorry, that's not on you. That's on you. That's not on any other person. And so right now, if you want to go to the UK for a job, perhaps the innovator visa is probably the biggest one for people who want to go via the job route. But yeah, that's that about the UK. You want to go do a master's as a married person in the UK and it's not research, then you want to do the long distance matter for a while. Perhaps be able to get into the immigration pool in Australia or in the US or in Canada. That works. But yeah, that's pretty the summary on the UK. All right, next. All right, so yeah, reason for changes. I mean, yeah, the government has cited that there's a high inflation all over the world. Last year, the housing issue was crazy in the UK, just like Canada is going through that now. The housing issue, I had friends who would tell me that they had to take in Nigerians just because of, so that's happening in the UK now. Yeah, so Canada is the reason that we are here. I wish we would have taken it last, but perhaps we go back and we take that. Is this the first slide for Canada?
Yes, sir.
All right, so what's the gist about Canada? Like I was saying when we started, you see, in politics, because basically your opposition, the power of opposition doesn't apply in Nigeria, so we don't know that, but your opposition is always talking bad about you. And when they talk bad about you, it affects your approval rating. Canada has been pro-immigration for over 20 plus years. You're talking about a great nation, rich in land. Canada has the second largest land mass in the world, right after Russia. That is something. Now, a good 20, 30% of that land mass is not useful because of the weather, because of the, the way it's set up by God. However, Canada has the second largest land mass in the world. And that's telling something, considering that they are the baby brothers of the US, right? And so over the last good 20 plus years, they have been pro-immigration. And again, like I said, they use the parliamentary system. And usually in the parliamentary system, partnerships are necessary for you to stay in power. And right now, the opposition is making a lot of noise. So for someone like me, I'm not surprised with the changes. In fact, the changes are not a bad thing. It's bad for us here because our economy is bad, and taking the proof of funds from 10,000 to 20,000 is a bit much. But that is not bad, because where you are going, if you don't have that money, you will not survive. With undergrad, you must understand that Nigeria is number 1 in Africa that sends people to Canada, and we are top 10 in the world. But they can't afford to bring in more young people at the undergrad level than they can take care of. Because when you bring in young 15 to 22-year-olds to come school, as a government, you're very much responsible for them, right? And again, that cap only affects the undergrad. It doesn't affect the master's and PhD, because again, how many people can afford or will be willing to move, in that period? So part of this retreat that they just had this week is to introduce a 2-year limit. Again, timelines are very important for international governments, because again, elections and dealing with the opposition, so they have to review it at the end of 2025. So they will reduce from 575,000 plus study permits that were given this year. Last year, 2023. They want to bring it down a bit to 360,000, and that's fair. That's not bad. It's bad for us, again, like I said, because of our interest. But if you understand what's going on there, I was talking to a friend yesterday there, and she was saying that, Tikpo, this last week I was at minus 45. And I said, well, see you much later. I'll see you. I love you. I'll see you much, much later in the year. So you must understand that the system adjusts to what it's given. The system will not take in the international students in their country. The system will take in their citizens and then the international students in their own current system, right? So we know that currently from January this year, proof of fund has gone up to 20,635. It was 10,000 for so long, so long. And you must understand that 10,000 was easy for us to be able to get visas. But when you get there, you are struggling. And that's why they've made that change. They've also extended some of these exemptions for working, working more than 20 hours to be able to allow students to be able to familiarize themselves to the new housing issues and inflation. All right. So now, 2 years ago, internal documents from the IRCC warned that, we are going to have some issue with immigration because of housing and things like that. And I remember I was talking to one of my friends and I said, look, you've got the second largest landmass in the world. Tell me again why you guys cannot just build houses. And he was like, oh no, it's not just as simple. We're not broke, but all that landmass is not, habitable, right? So you may wonder that a country that is one of the biggest, Canada is in the G7, and they weren't there 10, 15 years ago. Like a lot of the money that they have now, they've made with immigrants and international students, right? But again, everything is about balance. But despite those warnings, the embassy continued to churn out, permits. And so now the housing is a problem. If you are familiar with the system, you will see that the Prime Minister reshuffled his cabinet last year and he moved the immigration minister to housing and then the housing minister to immigration, about something like that. So it's a pretty interesting system. All right. So we want to talk on, the other points about what's going on. All right. Yeah. So they're going to cap the number of international students in provinces. That simply means that of maybe the 6 major provinces that people want to go to, if you divide the 360,000, maybe they get 40, 50,000 plus in certain provinces to be able to get them in. And again, that will give it a bit of balance. It will give opportunities to more development in other provinces, more schools will have opportunities. But, because the bulk of the systems are in Ontario and BC, that's where the issues are. I saw my team put out a post today on how the schools are livid. You can imagine an Ontario. Ontario schools make, I am told, I believe it's about $2 billion a year from international students. Even their government, their province doesn't give them that. So the presidents of these colleges are livid. Just like the UK, when they made that announcement, it only took about a month for the university again to start making noise. Because if some of you remember that in 2012, when Theresa May made that change as well, it only took a bit of a year or two for the university to say that, look, the government is not giving us enough money. These private individuals from different countries, India, China, Nigeria, Pakistan, they are responsible for our feeding. They're responsible for our innovation. We don't stay the best university if we don't get funded. And so it's going to be the same in Canada, because $2 billion is a lot of money. Because you talk of private schools that are doing 15 to 20,000 Canadian dollars per year, and international students have to do 2 years. That's a lot of money. And it's not like there's not much innovation, like, we make $1 million and we have to spend $800 on something new for the new set. No, when you're doing global business management right now, like, you are learning the same thing. So those conversations will continue to happen. Yeah, so that's that. That's why that is happening. Before I go back to the slide, let me just begin touch on the 3-4 main things that I'm sure people want to know. And maybe I will entertain some questions at this point. There's a gray area for us. It was a press conference. The minister says undergrads will no longer be allowed to bring in spouses. Again, much a lookalike like the UK. However, the news update on their website said you undergraduate and college. Now, undergrad is where the cap is. Colleges offer undergrad. actually, that is sort of the idea of the college system. But colleges now offer postgrad and masters and bachelors. So it will remain to be seen, off the top of our heads, we can say, if it's college, the likelihood is that whether I'm doing an undergrad or postgrad, I will not be able to go with my spouse. But it's a gray area because we do not know. It hasn't been spelled out, in fine print. We can only speculate based on what we've heard. However, why I'm saying this is because if you've read the Immigration Act of Canada, one of the key points of that is to keep families together. So if a young person is going to Canada to a college, and it's a public college, so there's the matter of the PPPs, which we will get to. If it's a public institution, college or university, at a postgrad level, which is bachelor, whether it's postgraduate diploma, postgraduate certificate, or masters, you cannot tell me not to come with my family because that contradicts your law. Canada intends to keep families together. They don't intend to separate families, which is why you see that for the UK, whilst it is important for them to sort of have a hard cap now, they have allowed research people to stay because they know that research people have to stay more than a year. Masters only stay 1 year. So you must understand that, again, that system, it will need to be very, very clear to us. For me, I call it a gray area, right? Because that press conference, the minister, sort of always put a comma by saying that in the next few weeks, my office will, because it was off the bat of a ministerial retreat. So we cannot say yet, we cannot say how we will react, but I would assume that it's going to be very, very silly for them to block postgrad students, particularly when they're also saying that postgrad students that do 1 year will now also get the 3 years in coming weeks. So again, that gray area will need to be addressed. The PPP, which is the public and private partnership, what we've seen is that colleges have decided that, look, let me partner with a private institution to be able to offer more opportunities for international students. We get what the government is saying. There's an argument that these universities have not upgraded, or the colleges have not really upgraded their facilities, and they're just milking $15,000 to $20,000 from students. Of course, the students do not mind because they go into the system and they can get their PR, but then the embassy says, or the government says that, look, they go into the system and we don't have enough houses and jobs for more people coming. So that's really the issue. We saw some news leaked out that colleges are now going to backdate their resumption for the year so that students coming in this year will not fall under the September 1st deadline. Again, in a couple of weeks, those will be clear to us. Now, the problem for international students from our part of the world is that right now, a visa takes about 4 months to get a response. You may get it in 2 months or a month, depending on how God favors you. But what's on their website right now counts about 120 something days, I think 121 the last time I checked. And so that means that we don't have too much time for both May and September. But now we work for our organization is very large, and so we've got our teams connecting with the government and making sure that things are clearer to us in coming days. Yeah, so that matter of the PPP will be clear. But right now, we think that we are fine because we believe that 2 of our colleges have announced that, we're hoping for official announcements on that. Is there a third one I'm missing, guys? I think those are the 2 major gray areas. Yeah. I'll take questions now. You can raise up your hand while I try to grab a bottle of water and drink. So if you have questions on what we've touched, you can raise your hand. All right. Yomi, you can take me to the next slide.
Thank you, King of Jaqua. So if you have any question, now is the time to ask King of Jaqua all of your questions. Please kindly make use of the hand sign. All right, I can see Dorcas Oladoja. Kindly unmute your mic, ma'am, to ask your question. Thank you.
Good morning, King of Japa.
Good morning, Ma.
Yes, thank you for this wonderful time. I know many might say we should pay some amounts to get to questions like this. So I really appreciate you for this opportunity. Now, my question is about Canada. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Hello? Yeah. Now, my question is about Canada. Yes, you've explained about the whole new changes and why it's been happening, why most of us are having better understanding now. Now, my question is, if you are now going for postgraduate, like you say, are we saying the work limit they will give at the end of the course study, it's 2 years, not going to increase it? Or after the 2 years, that means one had to come back to his or her town, to his country, or is there a way one will navigate to stay more years? Since within the space of work the course, one is intending to bring the family to join, though might not be immediately. So are we saying after the course, maybe like masters, after 2 years of masters, just 2 years work permit and then you are done? Or there are other ways to have more years to stay? That's my question. Thank you.
All right. Okay, I mean, do you want me to take all the questions first or answer one by one?
All right, so you can answer one by one for us to be able to take other questions at the end of the webinar as well.
All right. So the postgraduate work permit will be clearer in coming days, they have announced. But what they're saying is that if you do a grad set and it's just 1 year, they are proposing that you will still be eligible for the 3 years, so long as you've completed that in Canada. So usually, if you did a college 1 year, you get 1 year postgraduate work permit. If you do 2 years, you get 2 to 3 years. If you do a master's 1 year, you get 3 years. If you do a master's 2 years, you get 3 years. So depending on the province and what you're applying for. So, but now what they are saying is that short-term people, because again, if you follow the express entry poll and all that, and as much as I know a bit about all I'm saying, I try very much to stick to what is my strength. So we've got an RCIC that we work with, whose own main focus on express entry and things like that. But I know that, so they have, I believe they announced again over 500,000 people. So they are basically trying to keep the people in their system who have gone to their schools within the system. That's basically the summary, right? When you have so many people who have gone through your school, particularly if people have done research in your country, you don't really want to send them back if you can keep them, right? You want to keep the best. You always want to keep the best talents, and that's why you must understand that Canada did not become Canada just like that. If you follow what is G7, G20 all over the world, Canada wasn't there a few years ago, and now they are talking of a country that boasts like high humanitarian aid and things like that, because people are funneling money into their system. And of course, if you have credit, you understand that Canada is heavily taxed. If you make 50,000 in Canada, best believe that at least 25 to plus thousand is going to the government. Because if you sneeze, the government is going to take care of you, right? Anything you do, like they're going to take care of you. So I hope that answered your question, Madam Dorcas. That policy would be changed, but he has said clearly that even short-term people will get 3 years. So the matter of your spouse coming with postgrad is what is still an uncertainty, because like I just said, they don't intend to separate families. And usually when your spouse applies for an open work permit, depending on if you apply together or you apply one after the other, they intend to allow your spouse to come in and get a job, particularly having reviewed and seen that the person will be able to contribute to the system. And usually your children will go on visiting visa, it's not a problem, but getting them a study permit helps you, it allows you to get some benefits. That also will become clearer in a couple of days. It has not been announced. But yeah, because they have the free education system also going there for them. So at that level.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, King of Japa. Odo Emmanuel, please kindly ask your questions. And the rest can please drop their question in the chat box so I can read them out to King of Japa in the course of the section.
Okay,
Odo
good morning.
Emmanuel.
Yeah, my question is, what's the issue of getting a letter from the province? What has your company done about it? Because I think I might be needing it to complete my application by in some weeks' time. So that's what I want to find out. And
Yes,
also,
okay.
and also, now that there is uncertainty surrounding Canada, do you have like any other countries like you can now shift attention to, because it's like everybody's trying to go to Canada and Canada doesn't want everybody to come. So as a company and organization, do you have like a plan B in place of Canada?
Yes, I love this question. And just for a minute, I felt the country. I felt I felt a bit of nostalgia because the country that I'm going to talk about internally in the office, I'm missing the country already. Yes, your first question, you have also reminded me of the third point that I was going to talk about, which is the provincial attestation. The provincial attestation means that for those areas that are capped, you will need a letter stating that the province has space for you. That applies to undergrad. I don't know if Yomi has that, as you can pull it up for people to see on the system. The provincial attestation applies to undergrad. We are told that it will not apply to masters and postgraduate and PhD. Okay, so nobody has asked this question, so maybe I should ask the question and answer it, and do an ask and answered. People have never understood that. Do you know why it's hard to get into a master's and PhD in Canada? The simple answer is that compared to the UK, US, the US boasts over 3,000 universities. The UK boasts a good hundreds of universities. Perhaps always a 1 and 2. As a personal preference, I think that the UK has a better education system. The US probably has a bit of more money, but I would rather go to Oxford than go to Harvard. Like, that's sort of where I'm at, depending on the course. Between Oxford, Cambridge, and Harvard, MIT, I'd rather go to the UK because of the environment as well. I don't want to be fighting gun violence. But that aside, Canada has University of Toronto and University of British Columbia as their 1 and 2, but they do not have enough spaces like the UK and the US has. And so a master's program probably has 15 to 25 seats. And so that is why people do not go, to Canada much. Secondly, Canada doesn't have space, and so they don't have time to take 2 to 3rd class. They would want to take the best minds all over the world. So first class and what we popularly call strong to 1. So people do not understand that when I tell people to book a consultation, one of the things I'm saying is that, look, guys, the universities are cheaper than the colleges. Don't allow my team lead hear me say that out loud, but the universities are cheaper than the colleges, right? And people do not know that, so the provincial attestation would apply to the undergrad where there's a larger pool of opportunities. Not everybody can get into the master's and PhD, so they do not have much of a problem with that. Of course, if that changes, we'll know. But right now, you do not need that for a postgraduate level or doctoral level. Second question, my preferences are Europe, Schengen areas. Spain is one that we have just finalized. We finalized that last year. I'm someone who predicts. So we were already predicting in the office this was going to happen from early last year, and we already began to pivot to Spain, Lithuania, Germany, Belgium, the Nordic countries, Finland, Denmark, Sweden. So we pivot into those areas, but those areas are focus areas on scholarships, the few schools that have English speaking, or the ones that are a bit affordable. So in Spain, we have a school now. It's a very good school, if not the best. And their tuition is about 5,000 to 7,000 euros for the English-speaking courses they have. So at undergrad and postgrad. So yeah, we have made changes. But like you also said, sir, Nigerians are not, we do not really like change, right? For me, I don't know what I would point it to because I'm me. I'm the kind of person that you can send to Norway. I don't care. I love people. I love new environments. But when you tell a Nigerian, so I'll go to Norway and I'll start learning language. And that's really what usually happens. We like the safe bets, which is why everybody's heading to Canada. But Canada must protect Canada. Otherwise, a lot of things, the value is lost and nobody likes to lose their value. All right. Over to your question.
Thank you so much, King of Japa. I hope we are really learning something from this session. So somebody asked if there would be another webinar after the news updates. Please, we are going to communicate that. Kindly follow all our socials and turn on post notification. We are going to keep you updated on any latest developments and on new webinar.
Yeah, and also we can tell people that we have webinars every month. So we'll definitely touch on it. Once any information is big like this one, we'll definitely touch on it. But we have webinars every month, and if you check your emails, I'm sure the marketing team sends like invites to people. So definitely we will talk about it. We may do an Instagram live or a Twitter space, depending, but we do have webinars every month.
Okay, there is another question. Since Manitoba doesn't have a problem, is it possible to still apply to that school?
I'm not sure I understand what it means that Manitoba doesn't have a problem. What does that mean? It has to be. I try not to make assumptions. What does that mean, Elizabeth?
Elizabeth, would you like to unmute to ask your question?
Yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
All right, so what I'm saying
we can't hear you. Your network is breaking.
Hello. I'm so sorry. I'm on the bike. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now.
Okay, so what I'm saying is, since Manitoba as a province doesn't have a problem, let's just say Winnipeg doesn't have an issue with housing, is it still cool to apply there? That's what I'm saying. Because I already had an admission, although for university law, and I'm meant to resume for January, which I pushed to May. So I have till May and September intake to go and to apply for my visa. So I want to know if I can still go ahead or I should just forget about it and opting for masters. Thank you.
I love the question, and I love your what's it called? I love your commitment to be at this webinar, because if you are in transit and you're still here, I really appreciate that. So where do I start from? Let me be honest with you. I don't really like that university one. And I don't know why people do it. I don't know who advises people to do it. I just feel like if you're going to spend so much money on 1 year, why not just go learn a particular course? For me, for years, I've called it the biggest scam in our business. Agents telling people that you don't have to pay X amount before you go for your visa and all that. Why didn't they tell you that even if you pay any amount to any university, if your visa gets denied, you get your money back? So I don't know why people go for that course. It would never make sense to me. So free advice, you should probably do something that would help you progress. Of course, except your intentions are aligned with why you know, they want you to go for that course. But otherwise, I would advise otherwise. Manitoba may not have a housing problem, but they will still be capped if, again, you're going for undergrad. So that is sort of a straightforward answer. Okay, I'm seeing a question from Etosin about, she's asking about the provincial attestation.
Yes, sir.
Can I take that?
Do I go ahead to read the question?
Yes, please.
Okay, you didn't elucidate on the attestation letter for the province for undergraduate program. You talked about it briefly. Will your agency get the school of interest to send the letter to you after my admission is granted, or how does it really work? Yes.
So thank you for that question. And I don't know if you're already working with us, Tosin, but can I just say that again, if I was a betting man, I'm going to very much assume that the system is going to be like the UK system, where you get a CAS, where, so, you know, you get the offer letter and then you get a CAS. I'm going to assume that's how it's going to be. But, you know, they haven't announced, again, all the details, but best believe that that's how it's going to be. The province would be the ones that are testing to the university. And usually in the UK, once you get your CAS, you effectively will get your visa. It will not be the same in Canada because their visa system is a bit different, but that's exactly how it's going to be. So totally, that answers your question, I believe. One is like our service, if you work with us, will be the ones getting okay, yes, they'll be the ones getting the attestation letter for you. And we believe that it's going to be like the UK zone. Again, it has not been announced, but that's the logical way. It's a pretty straightforward system. There will be no reason for the embassy to liaise with the student at that level, or the province. It will be bogus. So yes, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, King of Japa. Chinwe, please kindly unmute your mic to ask your question.
Okay, hello, good morning. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Okay, great. Because I have two questions. My first question is, I wanted to ask how one can identify all those schools that have the PPP arrangement, that public-private partnership arrangement, our affiliation. Like, is there a way that we can identify them? Because it's seeming like if you have admission with such schools, it's not advisable to proceed because you might not get your post-graduate work permit after. So I wanted to know if there's a way we can identify them, and if someone already has an admission with one of those schools and have submitted application, what do you advise the person does at this period in time? That's first question. And then the second question is about PR, because honestly, that is what a lot of people are hoping to get after their studies. And the way it is seeming now, like if one is going towards certain provinces like Ontario, we've heard about how saturated it is, and getting a PR there is now slightly more difficult than other provinces. So where would you advise? Like, I know, just where would you advise, or where would you like tell people to like go to schools to where you have better chances of getting a PR faster than places like Ontario? So that's my two questions I wanted to ask. Thank you.
All right. So, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to double check. The matter of the PPPs, we've announced that, we've put it out. I'm seeing that someone has posted the link. So I don't know if you were here when I said it earlier. So the PPP arrangement, again, it seems like a political business wahala. It doesn't really affect the quality of what you're getting from our students' vantage point. However, it will get clearer in a couple of weeks because colleges are also reacting to what the government has done, which is one of the things we've heard is that they are pushing their resumption to August so that students will not fall under the September 1st and going forward. Some of the schools are listed in the link that I believe my colleague has shared, and you can take a look at them. If you already have an admission with any of these schools, like some of our students do, we're telling them to wait and let's get some clarity. We feel confident that most billion-dollar companies react properly, or let's say they respond properly to problems. They don't react. And so we do not envisage that it will affect their study permit once the fine print of what the government is doing is much clearer. I hope I answered both questions. The matter of Ontario being saturated, that was the second question. Again, it's a myth for me. It's really about the money. Chinwe, it's about the money. The money moves from 10,000 to 20,000 for a reason. Regardless of where you go, the gap can be a bit much for Ontario, but there are still some cheaper areas in Ontario. But it's largely because who doesn't want to? I mean, look at Lagos now. If you look at the Nigerian map, Lagos is such a small, tiny bit of Nigeria, but everybody wants to come to Lagos, right? And as such, housing is expensive. If you go and live on VI, Ikoyi, Lekki area, Ajah, it's expensive. But even around Ajah, Ekpe, the money see they come down. If you come to our own area, the mainland, if you are in the Ikeja, Magodo, Ogudu, you're a big boy. But even around Ogudu, K2, Alakpere inside, Shomolu. So you get my point, right? So again, it's apples and apples. It's a strong matter of choice. Hope I answered both questions.
Yes, you did. Thank you. You answered some, but I think the second question was more in the line of PR. And I know that yes, Ontario is more expensive, but like yes,
Okay.
if we are going to PR, like where should you suggest we go to? What provinces have better chances of getting PR faster due to lesser competition?
Yeah, I'm guessing you didn't get me earlier. Maybe before you came, I was saying that it won't matter anymore because now there's something called the Canadian Experience Class. It is the fastest way to get PR if you are a student, right? And that means that you work in Canada for a year. So once they change their policy from 1 year PGWP to 3 years, any province you go to will not be a problem because that will be the fastest way to go in. But if you are going from here, then it's a different ball game. Do you understand my point? The Canadian Experience Class is, they believe that if our talent is here and they are homegrown, let's not ship them out. Let's keep the best talent here. But usually you need to have done 1 year of work. So if you do 1 year in school, you get 1 year of work. Now they are saying if you do 1 year in school, you get 3 years of work, which will give you enough time to file your papers, regardless of where you are. The other part of the question, which I would always preface by saying, I'm not an RCICO. Now I'm an agent of the commission under somebody, but I will tell you for free that there are over 80 pathways and you could fall under anyone. So again, it will be about your NOC and what you're doing and what province may need something you've done. So if you study in Ontario and you've finished a particular course, maybe let's see one maybe let's say like construction project management. And then maybe Nova Scotia has a need for that. And you already have experience of that in Nigeria, you could just easily move there. You won't have to wait. So again, it depends on what's available. I think I've answered that now. Docas, yes, we've got over 1,000 partner schools. So yes, you want to work with us, and we apply to both partner and partner and non-partner schools as it were. It's what we do. That's our own service, right? We're not just here for the money. Okay, Amy, over to you.
Thank you, King of Japa. Chris, kindly unmute your mic to ask your question.
Yeah, good day. Good day, everyone. My name is Daniel, and I have a question, sir. My question goes this way. It has not been easy anymore for us to Japa like we have been planning. And the more it goes, the more it's become more tougher. Now, since the increment or dollar exchange wahala that has been occurring all this while, is there any other means or route or way? Because all our aim is just to Japa, whether school or what. All our primary aims is to live and leave some of the problems we see ourselves or some of the things we are seeing about ourselves over here. So is there any other means or any other method that has nothing to do with school that maybe can be a bit better than the cost of the academic pathway? That's my question, sir. Thank you.
All right. So depending on where you're going, if it's Canada, again, over 80 pathways. So it doesn't have to be academic. If you are a professional welder, you can get into Canada. If you're a professional farmer, there's an agri-food pilot for you. It really depends on what your skills are. If you are an unskilled labor, what's that thing now? Unskilled labor. Well, let's say unskilled laborer, right? There are pathways for you. So it depends on what you have. And that's why my team charges a small fee of 50K to 100K, depending, to talk to you about that. So there are opportunities. I would beg you, because I hear this every week, don't go and give somebody 1 million naira or 4 million naira when you could have paid 50,000 to verify the truth. So there are pathways, but it will be specific to what you have, right? I have a customer who I sent, he's a big time farmer here, and that pilot appealed a lot to him. So really, that will work. Over to your question. Tosin, what is the age limit for EE? There's no age limit for EE, but usually once you're over 30, your points begin to drop. But let's stick to education-related questions. That's why we're here. That's why they are paying me. Okay, over to you.
Yes. iPhone user, please kindly unmute your mic to ask your question.
Hello. Good day. My question is that since this province attestation letter will not be available till March 31st, what advice can you give to those people that have May intake admission available now?
Can you specify the and alongside the what level? Is it undergrad?
Undergraduates.
Also, yeah. So again, you know how it is now. They say stay as is. If you are going for May and the policy is not yet in effect, it won't affect you. You can go ahead. Do you understand? Again, this policy would take shape and will be sort of, legalized and announced with dates and things like that. Once a policy has not been, sort of attested or notarized and legalized, all those things, you can go ahead. So the provisional attestation has not begun. Until then, we will go ahead with what we have, which is the normal letter of acceptance. But if you go to their website and we then see that they have added provisional attestation to your portal as something you need to upload, then your school will have to reach out. But I'm pretty sure that is not it. In fact, the man said that provisions are not even ready. So I'm pretty sure that that's not the case now.
So if I can understand you, what you're trying to say is that all those people that have May intake, all those students that have May intake, they can go ahead and submit their application.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, King of Japa. It's been quite insightful so far. Moyo, please kindly unmute your mic to ask your question.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. I apologize. My question is not directly related to the education aspect, just slightly anyway. The question is this: is it possible to apply for a study visa from within Canada. So the peculiar case is that if one has a visiting visa, for example, can you apply for a study visa whilst in Canada as a visitor?
Yes, you can.
Okay, all right.
Reach out to our visa team, visa support at Leeway, or I believe some of them are on the call, and I'm sure they will be able to help you. But yes, you can. Pretty straightforward. Fast, very fast.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, ma'am.
All right, King of Japa, I will be taking questions from the chat box now. Somebody asked that, does the new change affect PGD, and is it all BC provinces that is affected?
That's a very big question, though. Does the change affect BC? The change affects the whole of Canada. So what part of the change?
PGD, does the new change affect PGD?
Yeah, so if it's PGD as in can I go to school, you can. If it's PGD as in your spouse, that's what I said, that's still a gray area. We believe that they will stick to their law and allow for families to be able to, connect in Canada. But until that becomes very clear, we believe strongly that will not change. But again, I'm not the embassy, or the government. So if you're going for PGD, nothing is going to affect you. Nothing's going to affect you. The only thing that is a gray area now is, can your darling husband or wife follow you? Does that answer the question to the person? You can let us know.
Stella, hope we're able to do justice to your question. All right, let me go ahead with the next question. Please go ahead.
I think she said yes. Can you go ahead to the next question?
Okay. Can I still go with my spouse to Canada, as I just got admission offer for PGD from Conestoga?
Yeah, Oluwani should be done. I know that name is very familiar. Again, I just answered the question. Conestoga is not affected as one of the PPPs, so you don't have a problem there. Again, the gray area remains the matter of spouses, but I believe strongly that it will not affect us at the moment, particularly because just like when they make any policy change, some people have already applied or are currently applying, and so, yeah.
Okay. If you already have a SOWP of 1 year, will this announcement affect its renewal?
No, it will not. It will not. Stated clearly, it will not. Anything, in fact, undergrad students, some of my undergrad that just went with their spouse, it will not affect them in any way. They have capped it to, you would see on that publication, from September 1st. Oluwayomi, can you please pull out the link that I posted on the IRCC, and you can sort of go up and down with it, the one on the group. It will not. You see things like from September 1st, from so and so. That's really how it won't affect people that are already there. Over to you, Okwemi.
Okay. Akikumi, please go ahead to ask your question.
All right, thank you so much. So I have just applied to a school in Winnipeg, a polytechnic in Winnipeg, Red River College. And I was just able to get a diploma course. So I wanted to find out what's the equivalent of a diploma course. Is it like PGD also? So of course I know it's not up to masters, but I'm just hoping that the Canadian diploma is not an undergraduate course. That's what I want to find out. Okay.
We will need to see your letter of acceptance. For what you are saying, is that an undergrad? Are you going with your partner?
Yes, please. I have a family I plan to go with. And I've not gotten even the admission letter yet. I just applied about over 3 weeks ago.
That sounds like an undergraduate course. You will need a provisional attestation if your program falls into that window. And you will not be able to go with your family based on what they are saying now.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Welcome.
So do PGD need attestation letter from province with this new law?
No, sir. It was undergrad only announced. Should that be required, the information will be communicated, but no. Ruayomi, are you here? Can you please share the link that I have asked you to share? All right, you still have some hands raised, okay? Can we take them? We're already at 12:17.
We have answered
Please,
all of the questions and every hand raised has been attended to, sir.
Oh, okay. All right, so Yomi, can you share that link or do you want to? Okay, it's also been shared in the chat box. All right. So whilst I'm waiting for them to share the link, in typical fashion, largely policies are following country by country. The new Australian PM, sort of started this a couple of weeks ago by making changes to the immigration law that had been very flexible to those who can afford it and fit the skill. And of course, the UK followed suit, and now Canada. For Australia, for most people, they need to understand that if you look at the living expense now, it is very on par. We don't have it, that's not what we're talking about today, but if you look at it, Australia is 24,000 AUDs, US is about 12 to 16,000 USD, the UK is about 10,000 to 12,000 pounds, depending on what, part of outside London, within London. And now Canada is about 20,635. All that is very important. One thing that I'm talking to people about is allow scholarships become a very key focus for you. Plan, and respond adequately. Do not react. When you react, you tend to make a lot of mistakes. The US wants people who are genuine because they have a high rate of immigrants, and the current president is likely going to lose his election based on that policy. I mean, Australia and the other 3 parliamentary countries are very strong right now in their government, and these policies will not change for a while, except the prime minister is pushed out. So very important that you understand the data. And I tell people, if you come to our office to talk to us, you are working with us. We're not just working for you. And so it has to be collaborative. If you cannot get into a country, take a step back and plan. It hurts me every time somebody calls me and tells me I was scammed. It hurts me twofold. On the first thing, as a human being, is when you worked hard for your money, nobody deserves to steal that money. But it hurts me because then when you come to me and then I want to charge you, then you begin to tell me that, fear God now, things like that. But you didn't give me the 4 million naira now. Because if you give me the 4 million naira, you would already be in Canada or UK. So please don't come for this webinar and then go and pay somebody money and then get scammed, right? Information is open source. Okay, I believe it's at this junction that I can drop my mic. except there's still something for me.
All right, thank you, King of Japa. So somebody asked that with the new policy, will I be able to go to Canada with my kids if visa gets approved? The person joined quite late, so missed out on some points. King of Japa.
I think that if your team is going to bring out the recording, the person can probably check the recording out. We've touched on all these questions already. Depending on the level, you can go with your kids. If it's undergrad, you can certainly not go with your kids. If you're going for a PGC at Humber, you are exempted. There's no provisional attestation required now. I don't know why my people have not shared the link that I've asked them to share. But yeah, I believe that you guys will get an email at the end of this session and they'll probably put those links there for you as well.
Thank you, King of Japa. Very insightful section. So for those that joined late or you missed out on some points, we will be dropping the cutout from this webinar on our pages on Instagram, on Twitter, on all our social media platforms. So kindly follow Ilewi Education on Instagram. Kindly follow Japa Partners on Instagram, on TikTok, on Twitter. Please follow all our social handles to catch up with some of the parts that you missed. And if you want to make further inquiry or you have questions to ask, please kindly send us a DM for us to schedule a consultation and you can learn more about all of these latest immigration policies and how to go about them. So, and with that, we've come to the end of our webinar. Remember that Japa Partners, we are your surest way to Japa, Ilewi Education. Everything about studying abroad, we are your go-to. Yes, so for more details, please kindly click the link in the chat box. You have some of the questions, some of the answers to some of your questions in this link. Please kindly copy and paste them. And for a more insightful section, please kindly follow and check out our YouTube channel, Japa Chronicles. We share latest updates weekly on everything immigration from all countries of the world. Japa Chronicles, the link is in the chat box. Please kindly head over to our YouTube and subscribe. I hope we learned one or two things from this section. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to follow us on all our social media platforms. We remain your surest way to Japa. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.